Hi all. Okay, I have another fantastic composition for you, this time by Alan White. It was composed in 1918. The stipulation is white to play a mate in 2. So exactly 2 moves. So that's 3 half moves in total, 3 half moves, or ply half moves in total, but 2 moves from white will do the mate in 2 by Alan White, the composition as well. So you might want time to pause the video. I'll give you time, 5 seconds starting from now to pause the video. Okay, so the mate in 2, and if you found all the ramifications, that's pretty amazing if you've researched all the ramifications, is actually to do with bishop b2, to fully explore the beauty of this construction that we have here on the board. Let's go through this. So basically the principal threat would seem to be bishop d4 checkmate. So how does black address the principal threat, and what weaknesses of the last moves are implied by the various defences? Well, first of all, we can rule out d5. It doesn't do anything about bishop d4. So d5, bishop d4, checkmate, fine. We can rule out d5. We can rule out f6, it's irrelevant for the same reason, just bishop d4. F takes e6, we have bishop d4. Now things get interesting here. Knight takes b3. Knight takes b3, so we've got no bishop d4 next. So do we panic here? What's the weakness of that last move? Okay, well here white has actually queen takes b3, and that is actually checkmate. The king is stranded here, can't go to f4 for that knight, there's no squares, so that is definitely checkmate. The knights are holding f4, e4, the bishop's holding d4 as well as the rook, which holds these squares, definitely a checkmate there. So knight takes b3 doesn't help. Another interesting one is knight d4. Now on knight d4, okay, so knight d4 will put, sorry, knight d3 will put on the board. Now it does stop bishop d4, but it creates a weakness of the last move in that it actually blocks the king. Yes, that could count as a weakness of the last move. Blocking the king can be used for helping, unfortunately, a checkmate, and here it's with rook e2. So that's the beauty there. Rook e2 is checkmate. Now let's also look now at the move knight a4. Now this one has a strength of the move. It's controlling the d4 square from the queen, so there's no bishop d4, but it's creating a weakness of the last move in that actually the knight can be taken here with a discovered check and mate, checkmate here. So knight a4 fails there. Knight e4 again. Okay, so we haven't got that mechanism, and in fact we can't play this because queen takes. Now here, so there's bishop d4, queen d4. What we play here is actually exploiting the weakness of the last move, that the knight is actually blocking the king from the e4 square. We can actually play knight f1, checkmate. So knight e4. Now knight a6 is blocking the queen from over here from taking on a3, and we can actually simply play b4 here, checkmate. Knight takes e6. Here it's stopping bishop d4 by both of them this time, but here the weakness of the last move, the queen's hanging and the knight's also pinned, which means actually queen takes a7, checkmate. The knight can't interfere. That is actually checkmate there. So yes, knight b7 in this position. So we've got d4 covered, we've got the queen covered, so we can't play b4. The knight move we can play king e4, but in this position white has actually, the weakness here is that the rook is now not guarded. Like in football terms, it's not marked. The rook is not marked after knight b7, so it can actually score the goal. With e takes f7, checkmate. Knight d7. Okay, what's happening here after knight d7? Well, okay, d4 is covered, a3 is covered, but we can actually play e takes d7, discover check and mate. Queen takes a3 doesn't help, we just play bishop d4. Okay, so queen takes a3. The same with queen a4, bishop d4. Queen a5, bishop d4. Queen a6, bishop d4. Queen b7, bishop d4. C7, bishop d4. D7, bishop d4. These are irrelevant. They're all irrelevant. Taking here, bishop d4. Everything else, it seems as though bishop d4. I think I've covered most things so far. So the more interesting ones, which are not bishop d4, and let's just sum them up in a nutshell. So I'll take off the arrows. So the ones which are not ending in bishop d4. Okay. So we have knight takes b3. There's bishop d. Knight takes b3, which stops bishop d4, but unfortunately fails to queen takes b3. So that doesn't help. Knight d3. There's rook e2. I'll put these ones in green actually. Rook e2. Checkmate. Knight a4. On knight a4, there's b takes a4. Checkmate. Knight e4. There's knight f1. Checkmate. Knight a6. There's b4. Checkmate, because it blocks the queen. Knight takes e6. There's queen takes a7. Checkmate. On knight takes e6. Yeah, all of these knight moves, this is a familiar pattern. Knight b7 from earlier composition. Knight b7, there's e takes f7, checkmate. Knight d7, there's e takes d7, checkmate. Yeah, so all the knight movements have actually been covered in those variations. And so not leaving much else actually apart from the knight movements. Yeah, I think basically it's the knight movements which stop the bishop d4 in various ways. So another incredible one from mate in 2. Bishop b2, it's incredible, but that actually is, yeah, I mean, this is engine check. This is unbelievable, isn't it? That someone can actually construct this sort of thing. So bishop b2 is a mate in 2 from this position. Anything else is slower. There's lots of mates in 3 here. There's about 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 different mates in 3. For example, you know, b4 we could take here and then e takes f7, but we're looking, the stipulation though is the mate in 2, and that's what makes it hard. Okay, I hope you got something from this video. Comments or questions on YouTube. Thanks very much.